When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there, good morning everybody, and welcome to Join Up Dots. This is the place to come to for your motivational, inspirational, conversational chat. And on today's show today, we're going to be discussing online marketing. And my guest is a man who I suppose he brings a very different flavour to what we generally see on the show every day, because more often than not, we talk about growing a business that attracts customers across the world. Now, he believes the most exciting part of the marketing world that he lives in is working with small businesses. Yep, the ladies and gentlemen that we drive past every day in our own towns and neighbouring communities. And the reason for this small town approach? Well, as it states on his official page, the technology and media landscape today makes it easier than ever before for a small business to compete and win against large competitors. Sounds good to me. Small businesses are fun to work with and results are easier to see in small businesses. If something doesn't work, it's easiest to change. And life is too short to spend the majority of your time doing things that aren't fun, aren't productive, or aren't leading to positive results. But how did he get to this point of realisation that his future was closer to home than perhaps he first recognised? Well, it seems to me that after moving through many different positions within the marketing world, it was when he performed the role of instructor of marketing at Arkansas University for 2 years. Well, that seems to me a key point, and we'll find out if it's true. But more often than not, our future becomes evident to us when we're directing other people's futures. It's at these moments when the words that come out of our mouth stop us in our tracks and make us think, wow, it's okay talking this, but I'm not actually doing this myself. Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Mr. Mark Fortune. Good morning, Mark. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Good morning, David. Thank you for having me.
It is lovely to have you here. You are in Little Rock, Arkansas at the moment. I seem to remember the home of Bill Clinton or something. Is that right?
Yes, the Clinton Presidential Library is down the road a bit, but yes, this is the hometown and home state of former President Clinton.
And are you somebody that is really in with what's happening in the world today, or with your outlook of looking at small town businesses, is the sort of the political landscape not something that really sort of takes your attention too much?
Well, I mean, I think on a personal level, it's nearly impossible to avoid the political landscape day to day. I mean, it's everywhere, and it sort of dominates the conversation just about anywhere you go. In terms of business, I mean, you're always aware of what's going on and policies or practices or events that might affect what's going on for you or for my clients. But in general, you know, marketing doesn't change too much day to day due to the political landscape. You just sort of plug in and plug on and keep going with it.
I ignore it all, Mark. I ignore all political stuff. I just think it is total boring stuff. The only thing that I do, and I talk about it on the show, I occasionally dip into your president's Twitter feed just to see what lunacy he's coming out with. And that's the only thing I do just for a moment of comic relief. But actually for political, it bores me. So I don't talk about it with anyone. It's interesting because in your sort of bio, you talk about life is too short to spend the majority of your time doing things that aren't fun. But having those conversations, wouldn't you be better placed to say, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about the soccer results instead?
Well, I'm certainly more apt to speak about college football results and soccer in your world. My son's actually a big English Premier League fan than I am wanting to talk about politics. That's certainly a lot more fun. So I agree with you there, no doubt.
Good. You see, a guest, but he agrees with the host. That's what it's all about on this show. Just agree with me.
We might not support the same teams, but we agree that the subject's fun.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So online marketing, right? I'm really fascinated about this because we have so many people that come on to the show and they talk about a global approach and literally blasting it out in all areas. Be everywhere is one of the sort of phrases that we hear. You're more focused, you're more laser targeted, and you're more into small businesses. So let's talk about how that became, because it just seemed to me doing the research that a key point was in Arkansas University when you're talking these things. Did a kind of penny drop for you, Mark, at that moment? Did you sort of look around and think, actually, I've got it already, it's time to go out on my own?
That was certainly a major factor in it when I was a marketing instructor, and that was a lot of fun. And I did a lot of that because I just wanted to see if I could do it. Right, that's a bit of a theme through a lot of my career is let's just see if I can pull this off, sort of thing. And I taught undergrad for a couple of years, and that was a lot of fun and very interesting. At the time I was doing that, I was also a corporate vice president of marketing, director of marketing, a corporate employee at the same time. And it just, between doing all of that and then sort of slowly downsizing the size of company I worked for into just small businesses, which has been a lot more fun. You just sort of learn that what really produces results and what really has an impact on the business, on people's lives, on their customers, and what they're really trying to achieve. And it was tough for me anyway to do that in a large corporate environment, but between teaching and between working with smaller companies, it just sort of became more of a passion to say, well, look, we can do a set of tactics this month or this quarter or this year, and we'll see the results quickly and know whether or not our efforts were worth it, versus just sort of consistently running big corporate programs and you're sort of throwing it out there and you're not really sure what's going to come back in terms of results.
So is it something that is in your blood now? Have you found your fang? Every morning do you wake up and think, yeah, actually, I could see myself being a grey-haired version of the person I am today doing the same kind of thing?
In the context of serving small businesses and helping small businesses grow, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the best things about what I do all day, every day, is I'll talk with 6 different businesses today, and it's not just purely one type of business or another, but they all have similar challenges in terms of how to grow their business, where to gain that next customer, how to make sure that the customers that they're working with are profitable for the business, and what's the next steps for the business to grow and to achieve, that business owner's dreams. That's really what it's after. I'm after is helping them achieve their dreams and serving them and what they're trying to achieve, more so than that's what happens for my business. Out of that is a byproduct. I try to keep the customers first, serve them first, and then everything else tends to work out well.
And is it something that people, I seem to think it is. So this is a leading question, but I seem to think that it's marketing that kills the majority of businesses. The fact that they've got a product, they can't get it out to market, they've got a service, nobody finds out about it. Is it as simple as that marketing is the killer? You're either got something that's good that works, or your business is never going to thrive?
I think a lot of times businesses, more often than not, have something good that works, that solves a problem for who they're trying to serve. The challenge is, what I run into consistently is they're not sure who they're trying to serve. You made an excellent point earlier with so many businesses are trying to reach every corner of the globe with their message and their products and services. And the truth is, what I see with small businesses is their market's a lot more narrow than that. I tell my clients, everyone with a pulse is not a targeting strategy, but I think people get so passionate and excited about what they do that they tend to believe that everybody needs what it is they're trying to sell or produce or serve. And they may in some sense, but you've got a core target market out there that you've got to focus on and be differentiated and have a strong value proposition for, or else you're going to end up competing on the easiest thing to compete on, which is price, which is nothing but a race to the bottom for most businesses. So I think you've got an excellent point in that not doing marketing well and not having a strategy and a plan for who you're trying to serve and what you're trying to do and why you're a good solution for their problems can really hold a business back.
Because I think the 2 things that holds a business back in my view, Mark, is number one, they haven't defined their customer, as you're saying. They haven't looked at the avatar. They haven't realised what they're actually targeting. And then when the leads start coming in, they hadn't defined themselves. They hadn't defined what they want to do with those leads coming in. And this is me sharing it. When I started up Join Up Dots, I left myself open to so many things. And when they started coming through to me, I was thinking, I hate this. This can't be my life. So I sort of closed it all down purely because I hadn't defined what I wanted to do with my time, what services I wanted to provide. It's all right having the leads coming through, but it's no good if you hate what you're actually providing.
Yeah, if you don't wake up excited about what you're going to do all day, you probably need to find another thing to do after you wake up. I definitely agree with that. That can be a killer. I mean, here it is. You've started a business and you think it's going to be this wonderful thing, and it's just wringing the life out of you. That's no fun. So
where do you get your inspiration for business ideas. When you expand, no, actually, I'm going to hold that in your head, Mark. This is how my brain works. I'm going to go even back further. When you started to get that idea of actually creating duct tape marketing and fortune marketing and your companies, was it something that literally fell out the sky, or did it have teething problems at the beginning? It interests me that a marketing company could struggle with their own marketing to get going at the beginning.
Yeah, it didn't fall out of the sky. I actually got into this business through a lot of I'll call it research, but it was more informal than that. But I was actually a director of sales and marketing for a small business here in Little Rock, where I live, and was actually trying to apply effective principles of sales and marketing for that business. And that was going all right, and that was going well. But I was, helping somebody else make profits and not seeing any of that return for myself. And that was okay for them, but I wanted to do a little more. And there was a lot of the principles I was using was part of what is called the duct tape marketing system. And John Jantz's book, Duct Tape Marketing, was a part of what we were using and part of what we were trying to do. And I realized at some point, well, I can apply this for a lot of different businesses. So as things evolved and I decided to, hang the shingle out and go out on my own and do my thing, I sort of had a system behind me that was a point of view and a perspective that was very similar to what I'd been doing for businesses all my career. But this was one that sort of opened my eyes and said, well, hey, now I can do this for 10 clients or 15 clients or 20 clients as opposed to one client as an employee. And that was really sort of the bit of inspiration that made me think, well, and the other part of it was back to our life is too short thing. I had sort of an internal, could I really pull this off? Am I really capable of launching and owning my own business? So it doesn't get any easier as you get older. So let's figure out if now's the best time to do it and take a swing at it and go for it. And here we are, nearly 4 years later, and everything's going fine.
Well, that actually, you're a professional podcaster, because you led me to my question that was next on. That imposter syndrome, that moment when you've been an employee for a long time. And, I was employed for 25 years before I did this. And I remember thinking to myself, who am I? Who am I to have the world listening to my ramblings? Who am I? And it sort of hung around with me for about 300 shows. I was a fully fledged full-time podcaster earning my income, but I still had those feelings of somebody's going to turn off my microphone and pull me away. So how did you get past that? Did you fill yourself with support? Did you speak to your wife? How did you overcome those imposter syndromes at the beginning when you're thinking, can I pull this off?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that happens. That happens a lot, and I'm not sure that I've gotten all the way past it. I mean, there's certainly mornings where you wake up and you go, "Okay, is this the day when somebody figures out that I don't know what I'm doing?" Right? Yeah. Which is not. I mean, it's not true. It wouldn't have lasted this long if it was true. But self-doubt can certainly creep in anytime you're doing these things. For me, I mean, yes, I have a network of support in my family and peers in my business. I think have a lot to do with it. I'm a part of a network with 100 other consultants that do what we do, and we all support one another and help one another out of jams and things like that is really good. But at the end of the day, I think you just sort of have to bear down and do it. I read, there's a lot of different sort of gurus and mentors and leaders that I read, and one that I've read, this was, I don't know, probably a year or so ago, I was reading Michael Hyatt, and he made a statement, when you feel overwhelmed or when you feel stuck, just do the next right thing, right? Yeah. I mean, because you know what the next right thing is, right? You knew it when you were podcasting. I know it when I'm trying to run a marketing consultancy. So if you slow the madness down just long enough to ask yourself, what is the next right thing? Take that next step forward, and before you know it, you're unstuck and feeling more confident about what you're doing, and on you go. And I found that really to be very helpful advice, and something I always try to refer back to is just do that next right step and you'll be on your way.
Well, let's play some words that say that perfectly. I think Michael Hyatt might have nicked that. Here she is, Oprah.
The way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? Not think about, I got all of this stuff. What is the next right move? And then from that space, make the next right move and the next right move, and not to be overwhelmed by it, because you know your life is bigger than that one moment. You know you're not defined by what somebody says is a failure for you, because failure is just there to point you in a different direction.
Great words, of course. And I agree with that. And I think the thing that really applies to myself, Mark, on that is to be quiet. I recently, and I've been talking a lot about it on the show, I disconnected totally from my business for 2 weeks and went off to St. Lucia in the Caribbean. And I had so many clear visions when I was out there, and not sort of like weird stuff, but just where you just allowed the thoughts to come to you. That since I've come back, exponentially my show is growing, because I suddenly could see the wood for the trees, where when you're in it all the time, it's not a case of just doing the next right thing, because you can't see the next right thing. It's just like being bombarded. Do you have ability to step away from it totally and leave it and go off to the woods and just, shoot a bear or whatever you get up to, you Americans?
Well, I don't shoot bears, but I have friends that do. Matter of fact, I have a friend who did it recently, literally. But anyway, it's hard to disconnect. I probably don't do it as often as I should. My moments of stillness or moments of silence are a bit more fleeting and maybe shorter in duration. But I do get away regularly for at least a few hours and, turn off all the technology, turn off the phone, turn off everything bombarding you, and just say, okay, where do we go from here, right? And sometimes it's not even asking that question. It's just sitting there and listening and being in the moment of what's going on. And that really seems to help sort of center things and get back and achieve some clarity. So I completely agree that some stillness and some silence makes a world of difference. Coincidentally, my wife and I honeymooned at St. Lucia many years ago, so I'm familiar with the island. It's a wonderful place.
It's boring, Mark. It's boring. I was there for 2 weeks, and I thought I could have gone to Spain. Save myself a fortune. It was just, I didn't get it. I did not get it. The only thing I did get, actually, while talking to it, was the amount of people that were sitting around on their porches in the evening. The sun was going down, and it seemed like the whole island were talking to themselves. Where in the United Kingdom, I've been in the same house for 15 years, I hardly say a word to my next door neighbours, but over there seemed to be a big community of kind of porch sitters in the evening, and that's got to be good, hasn't it? That's got to be good for not just yourself, but just a way of life, being able to not have the TV on all the time, but just talk to your colleagues.
Well, we have a front porch on my house, and we were sitting. It was a lovely night last night, and we were sitting on it last night and chatting with our neighbors. So maybe it's just this end of the world, Western Hemisphere sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, we're just antisocial over here, and we've discovered Netflix.
You do it at the pub instead of the front porch.
Yeah, we do, but then we can't remember what we talked about anyway. So that's the problem. So your business, right? Online marketing. That's why we got you in here, to help people across the world who are listening to the show to start making notes and bring some results into their own business. Is there simple advice? Is there sort of implementable advice that we can give to the listeners in regards to starting a business, how to actually do that first foray into online marketing when they've got an idea of something that they want to do? Might be in the entrepreneurial world, they might still be in a corporate gig, but they've got that first step forward. What can they do, do you think?
Yeah, I think the first step is you have to have a bit of a plan as to who you want to talk to and what it is, the value that you're going to provide and the problems that you're going to solve. And that might be as formal as a, 50-page business plan that follows all the correct templates and formats and all of that. It might just be a one-page, this is what I do, this is my value, these are the problems I solve, and this is who I solve them for. I think you have to have that first. And once you've got, because that gives you a direction and you've got somewhat of a beacon to aim your ship towards, so to speak. I think once you have done that, the very next thing you need to do is get a customer, right? Because as the expression goes, everything's all well and good till you take the first punch, right? So until you've actually engaged with a customer and worked on solving the problems for them and serving them, you don't really know where your plan is going to adjust. And
how do you get one, Mark? I'm just going to jump in there. How do you get a customer when you've just got this idea? You haven't got like a fully formed business. You've just got this idea of what you want to do.
Yeah, I think somewhat it sort of depends on the business. If it's a service provider type of thing that you're going to do, I think it's a little bit easier than if it's a formal product on the shelf that you have to produce and have produced. In the product side, you've got I think you have to have a prototype, right? You have to have some version, at least an early version of the product that you're going to sell, and start introducing that to your target market. And that can be, these days, it's very, technically speaking, it's easy to do online through social media and the web and things like that. But more often than not, you can start with friends and family, right? You've got some local network or local group of folks, local may be global, right? But people in your sphere of contact that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is an idea I have. This is a product or a service I'm thinking of offering. Would this work for you, or would this work for people that you know? When I launched my business, and this is unanticipated results. One of the first things I did was I sent my friends and family email, right? And this is an email that went to, everybody in my contact sphere that I thought would be interested in knowing what it was that I was up to and what I was doing.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I got 3 consulting engagements out of that email from friends and family that I didn't even know had businesses that needed the marketing help that I was going to provide. These were people that, maybe it was their side gig, or they were facing a particular challenge in their business that, as an employee, I didn't have any reason to think about, oh, well, how could I help John with this business? But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to reach out and make that contact, go to your local network, go to your sphere of influence, your contacts, present them with the idea and see what feedback you get. That's the first step forward.
So what we call that is dry testing. And we did a show recently where we were saying one of the easiest way to dry test, and you see it time and time again, is on Facebook, where people say, I've been doing really well. I've had these kind of results. I'd like to put it into a guide for people. Would this really help you? And see how many people come back and go, yeah, really fancy that, really fancy that. Is that a sort of easy way? Because most people are on Facebook now, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great way to do it, and that's a wonderful place to do it. I spent that makes me think of, I spent a number of my years in my corporate career in technology marketing and doing marketing and business development for technology-oriented companies. And there's an expression in that world called go ugly early, right? I mean, get a product out there, get a service out there, and get feedback on it. And another example it makes me think of, I don't know if it's still or not, but for years and years and years, Gmail from Google was officially in beta. Right, it never really was launched. It may still be in beta for all I know, and that sort of gives you the cover to make mistakes, to get bugs figured out, to understand what you're going to do, to get customer feedback and adjust as to where the real value prop is. Because it's almost certain that the original problem you felt you were going to solve and the original value prop you were going to take to market is not what you end up doing. Right. Because the market needs are a little bit different than what you thought they were, and the opportunity to serve them profitably is a little bit different than what you thought. And yes, things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, communities where a lot of people gather are wonderful places to start doing that.
Because I am fascinated with Martin Luther King. Now, this is a segue into marketing, but I think that he must have been one of the greatest marketers in the world, because when he did that "I have a dream" speech, which nobody else remembers anything other than that, 250,000 people turned up and he didn't advertise it. How the hell did that happen? But at its core, he was sharing a belief somehow that transferred between people, and they wanted more of that. And that's one of the things that I think in marketing we see as a failing. People list all the benefits that they can get, but they don't give that X factor quality. So I think Martin Luther King, if you look into that and think to yourself, how the hell did he get 250,000 to turn up when there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, no advertising? He's a marketer, isn't he? Is he not the key marketer, Mark?
Well, there's no doubt that he was one of the best marketers and communicators of all time. I think not only through his personal style, but what he had behind him beyond everything else was an idea whose time had absolutely come and was past due. And he didn't need Twitter to reach 250,000 people to do it. He was the power of his ideas and his movement and where he was trying to take that movement alone was enough.
I also very much like this idea that Seth Godin has of how can you create the smallest company possible. So if you think to yourself, right, how many bills do I have to pay each month? Say $1,000. What can I do to get that $1,000 in from one customer? And I like that idea as well. And I think if you take that, that's a real doable springboard into entrepreneurship. Instead of thinking, right, I need 200 people and they got to pay me $500 a month. It's just too big. Do you think?
I think it can certainly be. I've always struggled with the idea of growth for growth's sake, right? That doesn't appeal to me a lot in and of itself. I don't know that that's reason enough to go just acquire more customers all the time just because you want to be bigger. I'm not sure that I understand exactly what bigger gives you, right? So I think what Seth is after there is, and I think this is germane to a lot of his ideas in his writing, is that you want to serve who you serve extremely well, right? And that audience may be 1, it might be 1,000. But I think the idea that knowing who your market is and knowing what problems you solve and how you solve them better than anybody else is absolutely critical. I completely agree.
Okay, see, he agrees with me again. He's now my world's official favourite guest. He agrees every time I open my mouth. If only I was married to you, Mark. If only I was married to you, I'd sit on your porch and we'd have a lovely time every night. Probably you wouldn't have as lovely time as I would, but still, that's my fantasy. So in your business then, what is the bits that's a drag then? So there's all parts that are a drag, and you think, oh, yeah. Did you just push those off to other people? Do you aim for the fun at all time?
I try to aim for the fun at all times. It's not 100% that way. I think every entrepreneur would tell you that administrative tasks, bill paying, HR-related things, unless you're a finance person, accounting and financial-related things are not the most fun things that you do every day, but they're necessary and part of the business. So you try to find the best system to get those done well and accurately, because your finances have to be accurate, and you have to, you as a business owner have to know what's going on there, but that doesn't necessarily mean you punch all the numbers into all of the spreadsheets. So that part's not as much fun, but you come up with systems and processes for getting the work done well, efficiently, and accurately. And again, you try to focus on what it is you do best. So I think it's very important once you've got a company and you're the owner to focus on what it is that you do best within that company. And I think that's when a lot of times you'll see companies where the founders and the starters or startup folks end up being more on the technical side of things as opposed to the management, leadership, CEO type role. They're more inspirational than they are the day-to-day leader of things. And I think that's a lot of what happens is people have to stick to what's core to who they are and what gets them excited when they get up in the morning. For me, it's interacting with clients, right? I will probably literally speak with 6 different clients and 6 different types of companies and 6 different businesses today. And that's what energizes me, right? Learning what client A does and helping them solve their problems. And then bouncing to another call with client, X, Y, or Z and figuring out what makes them tick and solving their problems. That's what energizes me. So as long as I'm doing that, I'll be doing pretty well in this business.
Right. So what we're saying then is the very first thing that somebody needs to do is they need to define the direction that they're going. They need to know what's right for them, and they need to know what they're going to be servicing to the customer. Then they're going to step forward and they're going to take this idea and they're going to dry test it, and they're going to put it out there and they're going to see if there's a marketplace for it. Then they're going to step forward and they're going to try to find a customer who will actually pay for that service. And then as it progresses through, they start to look at separating themselves from the minute details that bog everyone down to be able to grow the business, focusing in on their strengths only. Would that be what we're saying, Mark?
Yeah, I think as the business grows, you figure out your problem set that you can solve for customers will expand, and you'll have different things that you can do, and you'll have different resources available to you to do that. But that core mission and that core focus on who you're after is where you want to go. Now, that's going to change over time, right? What Apple did in the beginning as a startup may be a little bit different than what Apple does now. But that's all part of the growth and the evolution of a company, and that's a lot of the fun of what goes into it. Now, that may end up being you want to stay in a solopreneur kind of model, and it's going to be primarily you that's delivering that value for your clients, and that's all well and good. I think the important thing is to know that, right? Know who you are and what you're after, as opposed to just sort of willy-nilly chasing growth from every corner that you can get it.
And it will kill you. I've had burnout twice. And I'm never going back. I am never going back to the state of burnout. And it seems to me now, Mark, the less work I do, the bigger my results are coming, because I found that sweet spot.
Right. You know who you're serving, and you know what you're after.
I know exactly what I'm serving. I know exactly what I'm after, and I know exactly how to do it. But I couldn't have got there without that hassle. And I think that's one of the problems that people have. They kind of think it's going to be an A to B, and it's not, is it? It's an A.1, A.2, A.3, and it takes about 3 years. There's this benchmark that I keep on hearing time and time again, where people say the first year was me scrabbling around trying to do stuff. The second year was a little bit of clarity. And then the third year was me kind of separating the mess that I'd created in the first 2 years to really make the business what it is. Would that be about right in yours?
Yes, I think that's true. And I had a mentor early in my career. We were sort of discussing career paths and what I could do and all this sort of thing. And he drew an A and a B on a sheet of paper, and then he drew a ton of zigzags connecting the two dots. He's like, "That's what a career path looks like." And he was exactly right. Right? It's never a straight line. And yes, by year 3 or so, there will be more clarity and more understanding of where it is you're trying to go. And I'm willing to bet in more instances than in not, where you are in year 3 is different than where you thought you would have been had you done it in year 1. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's never a straight line, and you don't always end up exactly where you're going, or where you thought you were headed, I should say.
So where did you think you was heading right at the very beginning?
When I started this business, I really thought that I would spend a lot more time working on sort of high level marketing strategy, business strategy, very high level strategy sort of things, without a lot of implementation and tactics behind it. Not that they weren't important. It was just that, I wanted to work with business owners to help them achieve clarity of vision in their marketing and what they were trying to do. And then magically it would all just happen. Well, of course, that's not true at all. That's not, especially if you're working with a small business and a small business owner who is stretched for time and resources every single day. I can talk strategy all day long with them, but at some point they're going to look at me and go, "That's great, Mark, but I need the phone to ring today."
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I need people in the shop, in the store this afternoon. How are we going to do that? And then, I look back now and I'm like, well, of course that's what they were going to say. How did I not know that from the beginning? But now you look at it and go, well, of course, the next logical step is to serve them with marketing coaching or marketing programs or marketing services that are going to help them get that work done, right? Because telling a small business owner this is the 5 things you need to do without helping them get that done is not going to get you very far, because all small business owners are extremely pressed for time and resources. And they may love the strategy, but they also need to be able to implement it too.
It is astonishing, as you say, you look back and you think, why didn't I think that? Because quite simply, everybody wants the quick route. That's what we pay for. We want to go from this level of learning to that level of learning. We want to go from where we are now to more customers. And we don't want the 3 years of self-development in between. And that's why people pay it. And the people that can provide the biggest results in the shortest time will earn the biggest money. So it's a kind of, you slap your head and you go, duh, why didn't I think of that? And I'll give you an example. Oh, excuse me. Clearing my throat. I created a company called Podcasters Mastery. And I thought that I will show everybody how to create a podcast and the online scheduling for things and all the behind the scenes nuts and bolts. And when I released it, and I sold, quite a few of them, I realized by looking at the video content that a lot of it nobody was watching. It was just 1 or 2 things. And it almost plotted a journey through my content to where they wanted to go. And what they wanted was, they wanted to be able to know how to launch a podcast. They wanted to know how to reduce all the hassle afterwards. And they wanted to know how to grow a podcast without any of the sort of promotion and the hassle. It was quite an A to B to C, hassle-free thing. But I couldn't have seen that, even though I knew that already. I had to see that data points all the way through for me to reassess my product and then bring it out to the market again. But it was common sense. It was total common sense. And so we overcomplicate, don't we, Mark?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I ran into a very similar thing. When I launched my business, I thought, well, I can just coach people on what they need to do and that'll be great. Everything else will take care of itself. It'll just sustain itself on its own momentum. Well, that wasn't at all true, because as soon as I've worked with small business owners and we've discussed what they need to do and why they need to do it, next question is, well, how am I going to get all that done? Right? And it sounds like you've just added yet another full-time job on top of the 8 I've already got. Now I've got to do all the marketing work. I'm like, well, duh, of course that's what happened. I didn't magically create more time for them to get all this work done. So now we got to think about how to deliver value to help them get all that work done. So I understand. And it's like you said, it's very common sense. I'd like to think, had I stopped 3 years ago and looked, and I would have come up with that answer, but I think you have to sort of experience it to realize that was the next logical step.
Yeah, you do. You have to. And you have to realise that nothing's wasted as well. You might think, oh, God, I've just spent 6 months doing that. And you've learned. You've learned what's working. You learn what don't. I just had a guy on before you that's a multi-millionaire. And basically, you've got to pay 6 figures plus to hire him for coaching. And he failed like 13 businesses before he found his thing. And he said he couldn't have got to where he was now without those 13 failures. That was absolute gold all the way through. As long as you continue to keep on moving forward, as long as you look at those failures as part of the journey and not just go, it's never going to work, never going to work, I'm going to go and work in Walmart for the rest of my life.
That's true. And I think that's why it's important to have a plan from the beginning, and even to be extremely practical for a second, have a financial plan behind it that allows you to make some of those mistakes and adjust as you need to, and have the capital to not have to go work at Walmart while you figure out what the next step is. But sometimes that's what you've got to do in between. And if you've got a vision and a goal for where you want to head, you got to suck it up and do what it takes to get there.
Now, one of the things, just before we sort of move forward to the end of the show, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of, and I'll be interested in your point of view, is the amount of people, once again on Facebook, that are saying, I have created this business only with organic ads. I'm not paying for ads. I'm not paying for marketing. Is that a real skill, or are people actually doing that? Is the intrigue, is the persuasiveness of curiosity the real marketing tool there, or is it what they're actually saying?
I think it's possible to do that. I found very few examples where, once you gotta get under the covers a bit, that it's really true that it's all organic. And it's not because they don't have a good idea, or maybe because their product or service doesn't work. It's just, especially to dive into the Facebook thing for a minute, the Facebook algorithm is... Facebook's in an interesting dilemma, right? They exist to get as many eyeballs on their platform as possible to then monetize them by selling ads to marketers, right? But the problem is, they know that the more ads you see, the less likely a consumer is going to be willing to click on those. So they have to constantly tweak their algorithm so that you're seeing more pictures of grandkids or your neighbor's lunch or whatever it is that you see in your news feed, and fewer ads, but enough ads that Facebook continues to make money. That's a long way of saying I have a hard time believing that organic reach alone will do it. Sometimes it will, just through effective, really effective content and very persuasive value, and solving problems organically and helping people figure that out. But more often than not, it's just very hard to reach enough of a market organically to get it done. So there's got to be some paid component, especially within the Facebook world, to make that work.
Because I find on Facebook, what I do, I don't do anything on it for like a month. I don't do a single post. And then when I do, I seem to get a lot of traction on one. And then I don't do anything at all. Where I see other people, and you see it all the time, this stupid asking questions. They ask, what's your favourite movie on a plane? And what's your favourite food? And you think, have you really got time to even pose that question, let alone answer it? And one of the reasons they say it adds to engagement, that Facebook look at it and say, oh yeah, because he's doing that and a lot of people are responding to these questions, it's a good thing to do. I think it's better to just leave it fallow, and then when you post something, Facebook seems to go, oh, he hasn't done anything for a while, let's encourage him and sort of push it out to the masses. I get so much more interaction from stuff when I haven't done anything for about 5 weeks on it.
That's interesting. I need to go look at your posts and see what formula you've cracked that helps you get that. I think if only every 4 weeks you posted what's your favorite movie, or what did you eat on the plane last week, and you only did that once every 4 weeks, you'd probably see that engagement go down. I have to believe that your posts are quite engaging, even if they are more infrequent. And I think that's the I think that's really the key is, Facebook is there to, from a user standpoint, to have a good experience, to spend time on their platform, because that's what Facebook wants you to do. So as long as you're creating content that is not just look at the nachos I had for lunch or something like that, or here's my favorite cat video, I think you'll do well even with more infrequent posts like you're saying. To really reach your audience, there's got to be some paid component to it as well, more and more these days.
Well, let's play some words now from a guy who was a master at marketing because he understood exactly what the customer wanted. It was the customer experience. Here's Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So great words there, powerful words. Of course, Steve Jobs, he's the legend. Are they words that really sort of you can reflect on your own life and think, they're pretty spot on, Steve. I'd slap you on the back if I was there with you now.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You can listen to that and say, yep, that's exactly what happened with me. I didn't see it at the time, but if I look back, in my case, around 23 years or so, I completely can see how that happens.
And so what happened 23 years ago? What was your big dot then that's led you to where you are now, Mark?
Well, so it's sort of what we discussed about that zigzag in your life, right? I graduated from college, and up until probably January of my senior year at university, I had every intention of becoming a history professor. That's what my degree's in. I really enjoyed history and really thought that that's what I was going to do, right up until I realized I was really tired of school. And I'd had enough school to last quite some time. So it was like, well, you kind of have the oh crap moment, and you got to go find a job, right? And I was lucky enough to have, and I do think it was luck because it was not with a lot of intent behind it, have had some experience in the business world and managed to put a liberal arts degree resume together with some actual practical business experience, and that got me hired, and that helped me figure out in my first job, which was oddly enough for a large consulting firm, sort of what business was about and how it worked. And I had a wonderful mentor there that helped me sort of gain my business acumen. And I decided, well, I've sort of come in and out of the corporate world. After that, it was, well, I really like the music business. And I went and worked for a record label back when there were things called record labels and there were things called record stores. And you had small chains of, I know young people listening to this won't understand, but there were places where you actually bought music on physical media.
They're coming back over here. I tell you, they're coming back.
Yeah, I really get a kick out of vinyl coming back the way it is over here. That really, I get a huge kick out of that. But anyway, I was in the music business and things were going along and it was okay. Wasn't making a lot of money, but was having a lot of fun. And some family issues happened and there was some illness to deal with. And that caused me to move. I was out on the East Coast of the States, and that caused me to move back home, which is Arkansas. This is where I grew up. And once I did that, to be with my family for a while and work through some issues there, I went back into corporate world, worked for a telecom company and eventually for a very large public data and software company. And, 18 years later back in Arkansas, it sort of went from bigger company to smaller company to smaller company to real small company to startup on my own, and developed a real passion for marketing and helping business leaders and helping small businesses grow and help them figure out how to serve their customers better, and using this wonderful thing called the internet and online marketing to help people get better results out of their business. And somewhere along the way, got married and had kids, and here we are. I mean, all those dots, you could have never told me in 1994 this is where it was going to end up, because I could have never foreseen it, like Mr. Jobs said in your quote there. But this is where it happens, and it's fun, and it's been a wonderful journey and a good thing to be a part of while you're a part of it.
So you wouldn't go back and change any of your dots?
Well, you'd want to look back and say, man, if I could tell myself back then, by the way, it's not always a straight line. And I would have liked to have known gotten to know myself a little better, a little earlier, likes and dislikes, and understand what energizes me and what doesn't energize me, that probably would have shortened the distance between some of those dots a little bit, I think. I think being a little more willing to seek out mentors and leaders that had sort of been there and could help point you in right directions, I think would help. I think I'd like to tell myself in 1994 to take a few more risks than you've taken. That might have hastened the process a bit, which would have been all good. But, I don't have any regrets about all the years I spent in corporate America and learning that, because every bit of that led to where I am now. And I think that's true for just about anybody. Being an employee and having a job is not a bad thing at all. I think it serves a purpose. You've got to understand what your purpose is. You've got to understand who you are and what energizes you, and then do your best to get there. And working in corporate America may be a good way to start that.
I think the only thing I would change some of the mental girlfriends I had, and then I'd be able to get my favourite jumper and my record collection back. You always lose your record collection to mental girlfriends. It's one of the things that they hold back from you.
Is that where they went?
That's where they went. Yeah, that's where they went.
Well,
They went to the mental girlfriend heaven in the sky, or wherever they take them all. But you've already alluded to this, but I'm going to be fascinating to hear you speak to your younger self, because this is the part of the show called The Sermon on the Mic, when we're going to send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back and speak to the young Mark, what age would you choose and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to click the music, and when it fades, you're up. This is The Sermon on the Mic.
With the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Well, I would talk to myself probably going back to graduating from university. So that would have been mid-90s, 1994, 1995. I was in Washington, D.C., and I would tell Mark back then to take a little more time to know what you were after in life and what kind of life you really wanted to live. As it's turned out, I took a long time to figure that out, and probably way too long. And I just sort of was okay just sort of bouncing along and going from opportunity to opportunity, which the good part was it made me very flexible, and I'm able to do a lot of different things. But I think it made the journey probably a lot longer than it needed to be, and that's probably still even a little true today. That when you really look at where you want to head and what you want to do, you can see it out there. Now the path is not going to be a straight line to get there. It is always zigs and zags, but understanding where you want to go and having a purpose and a goal for what you want to do, both personally and professionally, is critical to success and happiness. And I think it's very important to trust yourself. I don't know that I had a lot of self-confidence when I started off in my career 20 some odd years ago. And I think it's very important that you trust yourself, because at the end of the day, no one knows you better than you know yourself. And you have to have the faith that you know what you're after, and you know what you want to do, and you know the kind of life that you want to live and the sort of purpose that you have in your life. And it's critically important to apply that understanding as you go through life's journeys and go from dot to dot.
Great advice. Great advice. So, Mark, what's the number one best way that our audience can connect with you, sir?
Sure. So my business's website is Fortune Marketing Inc. That's fortunemarketinginc.com. You can always reach me through there. All of my social links are on that site as well, but you can find me on Fortune Marketing on Facebook, or at Fortune MKTGINC on the Twitter, and Mark Z Fortune on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect anytime. I'd love to get to know you.
And before we let you go, what is the number one bit of advice that we can leave our listeners with on online marketing?
Know who you're going to talk to and what problems you're going to solve. All of the different channels and media to reach them can sort themselves out once you know who you're after and what you're trying to achieve.
There you go, listeners. There you go. From Mark Fortune himself, the expert on online marketing. Mark, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Mark Fortune, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It's been a real pleasure. I enjoyed it.
So there you have it. Online marketing. You know who you're targeting and you say the words that they want to hear, basically. And it's as simple as that. And there's so many tools nowadays to make it as easy as possible. And of course, you can go over to Mark at his company and he can help you further. But it all starts with you guys. It all starts with you and defining yourself and also defining your customer and what you want to bring to the table. And if you think about how you can solve an issue, you're half the way there. Thank you so much for listening to Join Up Darts. If you could go over to iTunes and leave ratings and review, it's so powerful. It really is so powerful, and it helps us push it up further in the charts. Thank you so much. But until next time, we'll see you again. Cheers. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.